a microphone, but I'll be conscientious of the always because I know.
Well, and your voice,
Yeah.
and you speak very, very fast. So that, I suspect, is something to think about in advance. It's just,
My review said working on read, say, read out.
I love it. I love it. But you're aware of all, you're aware of that stuff. Well, maybe, but it also sometimes, don't limit yourself. No, maybe you'll have a moment of just like,
On the grace for me, it's like I'm gonna try, but
yeah,
tomorrow
it is okay. It is. Yeah.
I'm just the best.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Let's do a little pulling prana. As if you're getting settled, just keep getting settled. But if you're ready, let's get into it and then we'll talk. Good morning. It's good to see you all. Do you remember this one?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do about 15 of this, pumping the belly, slapping the belly back toward the spine as you exhale down and then natural inhale up. Okay, about 15. As you're ready, inhale and then find your own pace. Try to match the sound volume of my breath. It's forceful. Going to be weird at first. And then when you've done 15-ish, just rest. Whoa, your heart rate probably got up. All right, let's take it to part 2. Fists, thumbs can be up or down, right in front of the belly button. Inhale, retain the breath until you're just ready to breathe. Go like a little beyond. Don't pass out on me, please. All right, nice big inhalation. And just hold and think about the idea that you've gathered all of this energy, this prana. You've brought more into your subtle body just by doing the breath. And now you're focusing it. You're bringing it under your control so it's not just running wild. Whenever you're ready, you'll let go. You'll bring your hands down. And you'll just notice the difference. All right, and last one, and it's almost like a bridge between the others. I noticed that sometimes that one almost brings us down too much, so then this just lifts our energy a little bit again, and it also gets, yeah.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah, grab what you need
I was
here.
thinking you guys were using it for yoga teacher training.
Oh yeah, no.
And then I was like, I've got someone online.
No, it's good. So arms out in front of you, palms up. You'll inhale, you'll hold the breath, and we just pull the prana in. This also gets us moving through. Has anyone done the Vayus video yet?
Yeah.
The prana, the forward moving. This helps us with forward moving. So unsticking kind of our energy, okay? Inhale, retain the breath and go. 15-ish, but it depends how vigorously you're pumping the arms. If you're really pumping them hard, then you might not be able to get to 15, and that's okay. When you are ready, remember you're holding the breath here, and when you're ready, just let it go. All right, and then you can open your eyes as you're ready. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, today I have this lovely human here with me. Have you've met them yet? No?
I have not met this group, but I know a few people.
I know you know at least one, but we'll do introductions then because Hannah is with us today, and Hannah is interning with me to learn to teach this class. Hannah also teaches beginners, so she might have some insights for us today because we'll be talking about teaching beginners. So as you do your introductions today, I would love for you to just say, let me just take a show of hands real quick. How many of you just through your practice teaching now have some experience teaching at least a beginner? Yeah, Eva, you have over here too. Yeah, it's very commonly the people we have to round up as our guinea pigs are the ones who are like, what? Chaturanga, what are you saying to me? And so you have probably learned some lessons around this. So I'd like to do a little share this morning, 30 seconds a minute of either if you've taught a beginner something you've noticed that's different than what you're learning to do with the sequence. How do you have to, what's something you've figured out you have to do a little differently? Or you can do a question you have about teaching beginners. So I can be sure to get to it today. Not that you won't have chances to ask questions later. You will, of course. Or, do you remember what it was like to be a beginner? So I remember very well. It took me, I came up through yoga a long time ago. And back then, if you had videos on VHS, you saw a very particular type of person. And they usually just did the hardest version of the pose. And so it took me forever to get myself into a studio because I really was like, oh, if that's what's happening there, I've got a lot of work to do at home first. Like I just had such a misconception. And then when I did start out, I actually felt more comfortable doing yoga at a community space that offered it, just a teacher who offered some rather than a studio, because there was still a lot of that even at the studios back then. And it was just not a comfortable experience for me. And I think that that's something for us all to put ourselves in that mindset today. For some of you, it may have been easy, no big deal. But I think for a lot of people, taking a class for the first time, particularly in person, is a very intimidating thing, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We may be like, there may be things around the body, whether it is how it looks or what it can do or not do, right? Or even functions like, oh my gosh, am I going to fart? Like, what if something happens? What if I embarrass myself? What if I fall? What if our minds we can awfulize situations before we even try them. So I think it's nice if you choose to go that route. Just what was your first experience like, or what was your thinking before you went in? What helped you feel at home, that sort of thing. So does that make sense? I made those kind of broad, but good. Okay, Hannah. Actually, yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will pass this around. Thank you.
Hi, I am Hannah G. I would say like thinking about beginners was it was a little easy for me. I kind of didn't have a yoga practice before I took teacher training, so that was different. However, what I had a big learning curve with was realizing not everybody has lived the same life and body that maybe I have. I came from a lot of what would that be? Like sports athletics, and that was a big understanding that just because it works in my body and I might be able to do it doesn't mean that it works in someone else's body, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're here.
Good morning, Kelly. So I finally had a chance to practice with my husband, and he is a very beginner. So the first time, I would say finally, the first time I practiced with him, it was like the blind leading the blind, because it was like 1 week into training and he's like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm like, neither do I. And it was just like a mess. But just a couple days ago, I was able to do it with him again. And I think what was helpful for a beginner was to actually show the poses more. I know we're taught like we're walking around and stuff, but especially if it's only one other person, they don't have anyone to look at. So he's like, and so I was like, okay, let me show you like the poses more. And then I did a lot of adjustments, and I'm like, I wouldn't pick on you so much if there were like a bunch of other people, but so that I think worked out well. And then when I was a beginner yogi, I had a really big ego, I'm not gonna lie. So like I came from gymnastics and other things. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so flexible. I'm so good at yoga, you know? And then I learned a lot. So I think there's that component. Like some people might come in with a big head like I did, rather than like not being able to do stuff.
Beginner teacher and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Only because there can be certain injuries that can come up because of that, or just missing the point.
Oh yeah, that was definitely me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this.
Mhm.
That's very good.
Hi, I'm Katie. I feel like with what I've been noticing as I teach, especially beginners, is like the cues are so important. And the more easy they are to understand and like concise they are, I can see like my husband getting into shapes a lot easier. And when I say something kind of abstract, he's like, kind of a little confused. I consider myself still a beginner, especially like taking YTT. And they're like, a lot of people take yoga classes and they need beginner classes. I was like, that's me. I really do. And the thing that's helped me is getting those hands-on adjustments and really feeling where my body should be at in space. Somebody coming up like, no, your arms are here and this is going back. And yeah, so those are the big things for me. I feel like it's very like the cues should be
Yeah.
easy to understand.
About, I don't care how long you've been practicing, I think it's worth your time to go back to beginners once in a while.
Mhm.
Because, and we'll talk about this when we do asana cleanup, and Hannah will be here for that too, but you get into habits you don't even know you're doing, and it's so good to just go back to the fundamentals to make sure you have them. It's so easy to just go past that and be like, but I want to do this cool thing. But if we want sustainable practices, we've got to get those down.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of opposite of Kelly. Like I didn't get into exercise or being physical until like my mid-20s. So I'm just now kind of understanding like body safety and like, you know, um, what's that called? Alignment and stuff like that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Megan. What were we saying?
How you would teach a beginner.
I
help as
don't,
a
yeah, I
beginner.
haven't taught a beginner because I don't have a husband or anything. And my dog doesn't really understand. She does downward facing dog, and I'm like, good job. But that's it. As a beginner, I really started taking classes at Vasa for a long time just because it's like included with the membership, and those to me were very beginner classes because they're catering to a wide variety of people. And there's a point when I like realized I outgrew that teacher, not in the sense like I was just wanting more out of class, but I kept going back to her classes just because I liked her and she kind of was the one that kept bringing me back. So yeah, like I like the beginner classes. I attend them frequently, just for that. I don't know. I like them.
Cool, and they are, and here's the thing. Something that's called a beginner's class, if you've been doing yoga enough, is actually, it's about you, whether it's a beginner's or not. You can see someone who can put their leg behind their head and balance on both arms in a post, whatever pose or whatever, but it doesn't mean they're advanced too, right? We don't know if they're breathing. We don't know what their mind is on. Is their mind on the breath and the moment, or is their mind on what they look like in class? So you can very much bring an advanced practice into the most fundamental basic asana class too, which I'm sure, have you kind of found that as you change even that changes for you?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I think like with the beginner classes, I really focus on alignment and just like engaging everything. And to me, they're kind of harder because I'm putting more energy into that. And then when I take the harder, more empowered classes, if you want to call them, they're a little easier because I have built up like that foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Good morning, I'm Vero. I feel like I'm still a beginner. I started yoga like 10 years ago, on and off the mat for like the 10 years. And I started actually with hot yoga. And what I like about hot yoga is that you know what to expect. Like the sequence won't change. So when I started this training and I got into vinyasa, I was like, oh, I kind of know the sequence. And then I started going to practices, and I was like, they're not saying what I'm learning. All these new poses are different. So I do have to like look around and see what other people are doing. And sometimes like I have to tell myself, process what you're listening to and maybe figure it out from there. And I think it happened with Beck when we were practicing yesterday, and you said something and I did something, and you looked at me, I was like, you were like, was that the right cue for this? Does it feel right? Right. So sometimes those cues, and that's what I've noticed when I teach my husband, a beginner, is that when I started yoga, YTT, I would just say, and he's like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I'm like, I don't know. And then the yogas come into place, and like he took a class and he's like, that was easier for me because of your cues that you give me when we practice, it was easier for me. So that's where I'm at with like how I feel that I'm still a beginner because I'm still learning and then teaching someone else.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hannah Marie. I'm pretty much in your boat, Vero. I've been practicing for like 10 years, but I still feel like a beginner. I do like the hot because I know what to expect as well. Um, I guess the feedback I got from my husband was too many cues. He was like, okay, slow down. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. But I think they're really important. So I guess it's really good to find that balance. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. But yeah, that's me.
It comes back to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My name is also Hannah. We have a lot of Hannah power in the room today. So I would also say that I'm a beginner too. I started doing yoga I was telling somebody about this yesterday, but my parents had this little DVD that was like yoga for kids when I was little. And me and my sister, I have like such distinct memories of me and my little sister in our living room doing all of these little yoga poses. And they were all animal themed. I don't remember like where this came from or what it was, but like that was my like start in yoga, and I'm really grateful for that because I loved it. I thought it was so fun. I remember like there was one that was like lion, you like stuck your tongue out. But I wanted to when it comes to like teaching beginners though, I wanted to actually share a story that happened to my mom. Because I don't really have much experience teaching beginners. So my mom is like the sweetest lady ever. She like dedicated her whole life to me and my sister, and I'm so grateful for her. But that means she didn't have a lot of time for herself and to like do things that she wanted to do, like yoga and things like that. So when my sister and I moved out and I went to college, my sister went to college, my mom started trying to take yoga classes again. And she went to this beginner's class at a studio near her house. And the first day she was back after not practicing for like probably 15 years, this teacher had her go into crow against the wall and took a photo of her to post on Instagram. And I share that because I think like as teachers, we carry so much responsibility to like create a safe space for beginners to, I don't know, just like feel like they're meant to be there and they're not like a flex that you can get a beginner yogi to like do. Not that anyone in here would do that, but it just like, it hurt me because it was like, oh my gosh, my sweet mother just went so out of her comfort zone to go try something new that she was so excited to do. And it wasn't a safe space and she didn't want to go back. And so that makes me really excited and like careful about the way I want to teach beginners. So I'm really excited for today. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
a good story.
It was
It's funny
crazy.
because here our teachers would never,
No,
it's never occurred to me a teacher would take photos of their students during,
no.
you know, we do things separately. If we want pictures, we do photo
Right.
shoots. So that's a little.
It was crazy. Well, but I think, I mean, I'm also from Charleston, South Carolina, and it's like all these boutique little fitness studios. It's not about the yoga, it's about the marketing and the whatever, but
It's been, and that's the kind of
Yeah.
studio when I first went to a studio.
Me too,
it
yeah.
was that piece.
Yes. I think it's more common than we would like to believe.
Hi, my name is Renata. I am definitely a beginner. My first contact with Vinyasa was here in the training. I used to practice more Hatha yoga at home, so a lot different. I have been teaching my husband, and he has a huge background with yoga, what helps a lot. But at the same time, it's kind of like hard because when I'm like teaching him, he already know what to do. So
Like, no,
yeah, exactly. but it's fun because at least like he have been helping me with like some tips, you know, like, oh, you should maybe try to do this instead and try to use this cue. He's also like an English teacher, so he helps me with the words, like the exact words that I should be using. But yeah, have been fun, but I miss a little bit like practicing more the hatha yoga, just because it's more calm.
That's the thing too, you know, you're learning, I will tell you this too, learning vinyasa will make you a better teacher for any style. 'Cause if you can teach vinyasa, you can teach anything.
Yeah,
It's really just so,
it's really like challenging.
yeah,
Yeah.
I really believe that, and that's part of why we do it for ours, because
Mhm.
it's so much easier than when we had a hot is its own thing, but you know, it's easier for us in our like begin or gentle classes, which
Mhm.
you might, I think that's what you mean by hatha, right? Like a longer holds,
Yes.
less flow. It's so much easier if someone has that vinyasa foundation to build them up to
Mhm.
that than the other.
The opposite. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Carly, Hannah's story reminded me, I haven't really taught any beginners so far. I haven't done very much practice teaching outside of being in here. But I did take my parents in July last year to a yoga class. Neither of them had ever been before. And just like Hannah, I was like so excited for my sweet little parents to do something. And my dad is a very tall, long, not flexible guy. And I told him, I was like, people aren't gonna be looking at you like there's all like, well, it turns out we're doing a pose and my dad's knees are up like this. And pretty soon there were three teachers around him. They had blocks, they had blankets, and he was like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I was just sitting there like, he will never go to another yoga class because the whole room was like staring at him. So, um, yeah, just that reminder that making the space comfortable. And then for myself, I do consider myself a beginner because I feel like I'm diving into yoga really for the first times. But I've been practicing it for probably 20 years or so. Um, it's funny you mentioned the DVDs, the videos, because I remember doing VHSs. And it's like the woman in um, her bikini on the beach and she's like rock hard muscle and she holds the poses for like 2 minutes, I swear. And so I grew up with a very athletic background and played basketball all my life and was always playing with the boys. So yoga was that for me too. I remember doing it like with my basketball team and it was like a competition and but there was always something a little different about yoga compared to everything else. So I was like a little something happened in my mind, but I wasn't sure what it was. And then I started a different chapter of my life basically, and I was going to music festivals and I took some yoga classes, early morning music festivals. Very different energy than a basketball yoga class. And then there was this kind of like, oh, there's more to this. And then I practiced a lot on my own. Last year, I really dedicated myself to going to classes, mostly came here just because the energy to me felt like what I wanted. And now I'm here. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
I'm Jordan. I haven't really done much practice teaching outside of here. And for my own practice, like I would definitely say I'm a beginner as well. I've been practicing pretty consistently for like 3 years now. Um, and like the poses and stuff don't really concern me. Like I come from a very athletic background and I'm like, and like that stuff comes fairly natural to me. Um, but I'm definitely working like on the part of the practice where it's like I'm quieting that mind chatter. That's more so what this like where I'm at with my practice is just trying to quiet my mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Eva. I also would identify with being a beginner. I think no matter like how far you get into a yoga practice or like really anything, I think it's important to have a beginner's mind. So I really identify with that. I have a group of coworkers that I've been practice teaching to every week, which has been really fun. We've only done it twice now, but there is a beginner in my group, and I think before going into teaching them, I was just worried about like getting the cues right and making sure they were safe and aligned and everything, which I'm still concerned about. And after my experience teaching them, I'm more worried about the like managing feelings aspect of it, if that makes sense. So like, they were looking around and they were like, whoa, like your legs up there, how'd you do that? Or like, whoa, you're real good at yoga, right? And so I want to like make sure that I'm able to create a safe space physically and like mentally and emotionally to hopefully encourage them to continue. Um, and after class, they made some comments like, whoa, like, Courtney, like, how long have you been doing yoga? Like, you're amazing, right? And I was like, what do I do? Like, I don't want them to compare themselves and feel bad about where they're at right now. So I feel like that's maybe what I'm concerned
I
about.
love that you're thinking about that, because we do want to gently, because that is very much a thought at first for a lot of people, and we want to gently, we don't want to reprimand people, and it's okay too. That's part of the, for many people, that's part of the journey, but we do want to be like, kind of dangle that carrot out there, but there's more.
Yes, exactly. Like, don't let that be the only experience. But I'll say as well that they told me, I think it was like 10 years ago, they tried yoga once and it was a bad experience for them. Didn't like it. The instructor was very much like, you have to do the poses this way, and that's the only way you can do them. And so I felt like a little bit of pressure going into teaching them to be like, okay, like we don't have to, modifications, adjustments, whatever. And then by the end of class, I was like, how was that for you? Like, I hope that was somewhat of a redemptive experience. And they were like, yeah, I cried in Shavasana. And I was like, what? Not that I like want to make anyone cry, but I was more so just like thankful that they gave themselves something good, I guess. So yeah. So
yeah, thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you.
Hi guys, I'm back. I've been practicing pretty consistently for the past like several years, but I feel like a beginner every time I go into a new teacher's class. I don't know if anyone else resonates with that, but like I can go to the same hot yoga class, but then if it's a different teacher, like once I've gone to that teacher at least once, I kind of know what to expect. Like, I don't mean to pick on Janine, but I'll use her as an example. But her hot class, like the way she gives the cues is very like pull, pull, pull. Like it's like she's telling you to do it. And it's almost like the second time I went to her class, I was like, I don't really have to. And like there are some other things she said, like you're getting the pose into your body, not your body into the pose. And so she would say that, but then be like, pull. And I was like, okay, it's just her tone. Like you really don't have to go crazy with it. It's just, yeah. And then sometimes taking different styles. I'm like, oh, I've done yoga. I can take like an Ashtanga class. Oh my God. This one person was using, wasn't here, but they were using like only Sanskrit, and the other students were regulars in that class. And I was just like, and they were putting their legs up behind their head and all the things. Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. And I was just like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think that was one of my first styles I used to take, is Ashtanga.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess like beginner's mindset is just like an ongoing thing. And I'm just now learning how to do a forward fold correctly. So that's all I have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. I
Love that. I just think it takes some real honesty and vulnerability to either be like, I'm still a beginner, or whatever it was you shared today. Like I started this way, but I learned there was more. So thank you for that, because that all helps us to understand like one beginner is not the same as the other beginner. Sorry, I just realized my head was cut off. And if anyone ever does watch this again, I guess seeing a head on the speaker would be nice. Okay. But anyhow, so thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And I think in general, this group, you just bring things up to such, you all just take things, you're just great. You're just really, as a group, you're deep thinkers, you're smart, and you're willing to be vulnerable, but also in an appropriate way. And I just want to really thank you for that, just starting the day. So what are we doing today? This is called, sometimes I call it considerations, sometimes adaptations for beginners. I don't remember what your schedule says. Poor Hannah's probably gotten documents and things with both names. I never remember which I call it, but it's basically, we're going to spend the next until we have another hour and a half. And you'll get a half-hour break then. So I want to invite you, if you need the restroom before, I don't plan on breaking since I only have you until 11, but if you need the restroom or anything, please take care of yourself as always. We will be talking about the teaching a beginner's class. You'll get hints on how to also teach, like if a beginner comes to your regular class, but really the main idea today is to be able to get some big ideas about teaching a beginner's class and then learning the thinking behind it so that you can look at the sequence and go, oh, because there's a lot of right ways to change that sequence to make it for beginners, right? There's, in fact, probably a million right ways to do it. And so I want to get us at the end, you'll take a section, you'll change it, and we'll come back together and see how everyone changed it. But I want to get you thinking in that way so that if you are ever teaching a beginner's class, you have these ideas in mind. Sound good? All right. And I love teaching this class so much because I love beginners and I have such a heart for beginners. It's just, I taught the Monday night beginners class for over a decade, and you see everyone come in. You see people who have right athletic backgrounds, and for them, not always, but for them, it's kind of like we're opening the door to like maybe there's other stuff too, right? And then you have people without that but still the goals tend to start very physical, right? And so we're just gently kind of being like, and we almost don't have to, because at some point they realize, right? Like I go in there, I make these funny shapes. There's better ways to get stronger. There's better ways to actually get flexible. That if it's for a calorie burn, there's better ways to burn calories. Why do I keep doing this? I go in this room with strangers, I breathe funny, I make weird shapes, but I feel so good, right? So it starts to kind of click. The yoga will do its own magic in that way also. But we can, through things like theming and stuff, we can start to open that door. And for me, really my goal, and I would invite you to think about you if you are ever teaching a beginner or a beginner's class, is what is your goal for them? And for me, it's never, I don't care if they breathe one single Ujjayi breath. I don't care if their warrior two looks like an absolute, I mean, I think back, I'm like, I wonder what my poses looked like in the early days. Like I just, like I had some athleticism, just I was a swimmer, but nothing like yoga. And I did start fairly young. I was 19 the first time I took an actual class, but I just think I still sometimes find things and I'm like, what am I doing? You know? So I don't care about that stuff as long as they're safe. What I care about, and this speaks to I think Eva, you were just talking, but also with Carly and Hannah talking about your parents, like I want to open the door to yoga for them. I do not care if they come back to my class. I do not care if they come back to my studio. I mean, I care because I hope they do. You know, if it's a place that they're a good fit for, I hope so. But I never want to shut them down from the experience of yoga. That is my only goal is to just give them an opening into feeling safe and comfortable coming back. And so I would say to consider that, you know, as you inevitably you'll wind up teaching beginners at some point. Oftentimes it's people you know who after you finish teacher training, they're like, I know I should be doing yoga, but I can't get, you know, and oh, my back and this and that. And can you show me a little yoga? And even if you do like a 5-minute thing, really that's someone's introduction to it too. So it's just important for us to keep that in mind. And I think ourselves having that beginner's mindset can be so helpful too. So I just really admire and love the attitude you all are bringing to this as learners today. So we talked a lot, the things you said, those of you who have taught beginners, every single thing you said we'll talk about today. And I love asking you that because you get it intuitively. Like, even though today I'm going to lay it out for you and be like, here are things to do and not do. Anyone with a head on their shoulders is going to kind of figure it out to a degree, although I don't know, there's people forcing people into Crow and taking pictures and putting them on Instagram. So I don't know. So we'll go over what we'll do. We'll start with some big brush strokes of big ideas. And then we will get into the second part of class will really be about deconstructing our sequence through a set of filters I'll give you so you can really think about how to do this. So I have a few big topics or headlines for you, and I'll write them up here. The first is to pick your battles. And when you're looking at your, let's say you've got a class through full of students, beginners, by the way, if you teach a beginners class, you'll find pretty quickly you have people who aren't beginners who you have to like get out of the nest. Megan, kind of like you were going back to your person. Sometimes here they get scared and they don't want to try other classes. And we're like, you're ready, go. Like, go try it. That's why we have in-betweeners actually to kind of support with that. But pick your battles, because even in a beginner's class, you will have someone who has no exposure and it's their first time. You'll have people who have very clear ideas, but they've never done it themselves. And then you have people who've been doing it 4 weeks, 16 weeks, 3 years. A couple of there's this couple who used to come to my beginners class, and they're some of my dearest friends now. But I had to be like, go, just try. And finally they did try other classes, and now they take other classes. But you need to pick your battles, because in a beginner's class, if you get caught up on what the breath should be like or what the poses should be like, you will drive yourself absolutely nuts. What I mean, and you can imagine, if your beginner's hands look like this, are you going to worry about it in Warrior 2 or whatever? Well, pick your battle. Chances are, if their hands look like this, their knees maybe aren't set up right. And I don't care. This is not a safety issue, right? I'm going to try not to slide into the split. This is where it's okay, Hannah. Yeah, I got it. I'll let you know if I do. Thank you. I appreciate your hopping in like that. Okay, gonna try not to slip on my socks. So if the knee is knocking in, but hands, and I'm kind of doing a weird one to fit in the frame, hands are like this. What's my priority? What? Yeah, why? It's the foundation. It's safety. Yeah. This isn't going to hurt anyone. Hands like this, I don't care about. And a lot of times if you get even if you get, say this knee's falling in or the knee's way past the ankle, and then you get it in a better spot. My stance is real short because I'm trying not to slide. And then you get the hands right, which would actually be up here. By the time you get the hands right, this is collapsed again. So you really have to focus on safety. That's your number one battle. Everything else, it's just going to take time. So number one is always safety. And of course, that includes emotional safety, all of these things as well, right? Part of that is watching language, instead of being like, oh, we're going to do a modified blah, blah, blah. Just plank on the knees is still plank. We don't always have to say it's like a baby wimpy stupid plank, right? Like if we're setting them up for that in beginners where we talk down about certain poses, then what's going to happen as they get into like an empower or flow class? So we really, part of this is watching our language, all of these things. It also begins before they enter the studio or class starts. Say more about that for me. What do you think about that? How do you think a beginner's or any student's safety begins the second they walk in the door? How can we create what feels like an emotionally, physically, mentally safe space for people the second they walk in? What can we do? Greet them. Yes. Even if you're really busy or you're stressed or you've got a big line of people, if you're not smiling, if you're just next person, next person, next person, they're not going to feel safe with you once the class begins. Yeah, it's important to watch our own internal state and to be calm, to be kind to every person, to thank them if they had to wait or whatever the situation is, but to really start to set that up with true human connection, eye contact, smiling, being aware of how we come off. And then when you start the class, I think it's nice to invite them to ask questions at the top of class before you start with a pose. Just say, if you have questions today, please ask them, because if you've got one, chances are other people in here do. Hardly anyone ever asks, but I do come back to that again. Later, I'll say, okay, what questions do you have? I don't say, do you have questions? What's the difference? What questions do you have versus do you have questions? Open-ended versus closed means I'm more likely to get an actual question if I say what questions, and it's inviting. It's like, oh, well, what questions do I have? It's okay if they don't have any, but what we're doing too is establishing, because a lot of times people come in and think it's this deadly serious thing, right? Like, So also invite them to have fun, try to be light. Even if you tell the same jokes every week, that can become a running joke for your regulars. Are like, I know what Hannah's going to say right now because she says it every week. But, if you find ways to be lighter about it, it allows students to really be lighter themselves. I used to a lot of times talk about about embracing your inner dork today. You're going to feel awkward. How often since you've been a child have you been in a room full of strangers in a forward fold with your butt up in the air doing weird breathing, right? Like just being a little light and silly about it can go a long way with anyone, but beginners especially, I think. Some things they just have to learn on their own. So this whole idea of picking your battles, there are some things where you are just going to say it and say it and say it, or show it, or even adjust it. And it's just going to take as long as it takes. And it's okay to let them know that too. Let them know. It usually takes 3 classes for anything you are saying to make sense to them. Have you had that experience, those of you with teaching new people? It's like the 3rd time they kind of start to go, oh, I've heard this word before, but the first 2 times it's just it's a wild experience for them and you. They're just like, oh, I don't know what's happening. So it's okay to let them know that too. So I'm saying be conversational, not overly conversational, but it's good to set them up in the beginning with a few expectations. Like we can have fun in here. We can ask questions. You can laugh, take yourself as lightly as you can. That sort of thing. Okay. I think it was you, Katie, who talked about cueing, and maybe it came up elsewhere too. The cueing this flows right into this, because our temptation can be to cue more because we see so much happening. We see, I mean, you'll just see interesting things. And none of it's to judge or to make fun of people, but you just do. It's just the nature of the beast. And if you are cueing minutia, if you are being like, now press into the outer edge of your back heel, they're lucky if they know what their back heel is at that point, you know? So it's like not time for, if you learned a really cool minutia kind of cue, it's not time for that. We are just going for get them in the basic shape safely. And so the cues we're going to focus on, then we go right back to here. We're going to look at the ones that are going to get them. It's our safety cues, our most generic basic safety cues, which generally speaking are, and I heard someone say the word, I think it was Vero, foundation. We just want a solid foundation, right? So these are the cues. When you're looking at your list of cues, you are going to be focusing on their foundation, because that's the part that's touching the ground and keeping them safe. We remember foundation changes depending on what's touching the ground. Crow pose has a different foundation than down dog, which has a different foundation than Tadasana. Yeah. So we just want to think about these things first, and you're going to, so whereas in this sort of class you're learning to teach, you might not give necessarily the same cues on the left and the right side. You might throw in a new cue to think about on the left side, right? Because it's like, okay, we thought about this stuff. I'll repeat one of those, but I'm going to throw in something new for you to think about on the left side. That'd be fine to do. This, keep them the same left to right. And this is all what I've learned. There's lots of right ways to do it. I'm just giving you my experience, but in general, we need to be redundant. And it's kind of that thing, like those of you who've taken hot, if they're getting similar cues in down dog from you, we want them to get those cues nice and solid, right? So that then if they do go out into vinyasa and suddenly they're hearing all these other cues, they've got that foundation. Is that all making sense so far? You will actually talk more. Somehow this amazing thing happens in beginners class, where even though you're giving less actual cues, it takes more talking. Have you found that to be the case? Yeah. And sometimes again, you still have to rein yourself in. You don't want to talk to the point where they're just like baffled and they're like, you gave me so much information, I want to go home and cry.
Like a journal.
Yeah, but it's part of it's because it's repetitive, right? And part of it's because you're coming back to reminding them about you're going to have a theme. You'll remind them about that. You're going to remind them about safety, about listening to their own body. So there's just even more of those reminders. And that's another thing I didn't mention under safety, but talking about, I remember I used to hurt myself a lot when I was younger in yoga because I really thought the teacher knew better. And of course, back then the classes were quite different, and it was very much, it was just a different thing. But I just really thought, especially in Ashtanga, because of the tradition, it's you go in and you do these poses and the teacher will come crank on you. You lead yourself through the same series each time. But there's poses when the teacher doesn't allow you to pass this pose till you've mastered it and you get to that pose. So it can become very much a grasping situation, and where you're just trying to get the pose. And I used to think the teacher knew better than I did, and I would hurt myself. And that's the thing we don't want happening, right? We really want to start from, and so many students think that. They think that you imagine that one cue works for everyone. It's okay to remind them, like, if this doesn't work for you, don't do it. Like, just don't do it. It's okay. Okay. Under these topics, what questions or comments can I?
I have
Yeah.
a question. You said it requires more talking, so is it like the sequence is longer, or like is it shorter?
It's less, it winds up being a lot less as far as the number of poses you do. You just don't have the time because you're, and we will get to this too, but you're going to demo more because you, and this is something too, Kelly, were you saying it about they need someone to watch, or is that what you were saying?
Yeah, because I had to show my husband a lot because he didn't have anyone.
Yeah, but and in a beginner's class, so in a regular vinyasa class, beginners have quite a few, generally speaking, pretty proficient people to kind of be like, oh, that's what the general thing I'm trying to do here. But in a beginner's class, we don't want them watching other beginners. We really don't. And so you are going to demo more. So that's going to take more time and talking. And you will be amazed. You really have to truncate and shorten your sequence a lot.
I was also going to remind, we talk a lot more because a lot of beginners, this is their very first time even being told to like feel your knee. Like people don't, you're not driving and told to feel your body. That when you start to talk to them, they're already forgetting, like, I forgot to breathe. I forgot, like, you have to just kind of have the same conversation with them a lot. That's why it can be redundant. You're reminding them because they left because they're like, I've never been told to check on my belly ever.
Yeah. And they still may not, even when you're saying it, but then the day will come where suddenly that thing you've been repeating gets through all the other
You'll
stuff.
have your students have come to you for weeks like, you have never said this cue and it was the best cue. Like, why do you never say it? And it's, I say that every time, but thank you. I tell them that, but you're thinking like, okay, you finally heard it.
It just suddenly clicks, and it's going to click when it clicks. But yeah, if you're not saying it. So there's a lot of redundancy, and yeah, you'll find too, it just takes a lot longer to get through things. Anything else? Please.
Do you think redundancy could be like repeating like something really basic, like focus on your foundation, or like if that's your focus of class, like saying that over and over?
Yes.
That's kind of what you said. Like I was in the yin class and Tiffany was like, stop moving. Like she said it over and over again, like stop moving and that'll help you like actually get into the poses. And she kept saying it, and then by like 3/4 of the way through class, I was like, oh,
oh, stop moving. Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. It was like,
yeah. Oh, what a great example. Yeah, that's it. And we do. Well, let's just talk about, let me come back to that because I want to talk about theming. But since we hopped into demoing a little bit, let me do the demo bit. You do demo more. So that's another big idea, is to demo more. And it's very important that you demo by mirroring them, because why? What happens if you turn your back? How did you just, what was that like for you just now when I turned my back to you?
a little awkward.
Little awkward. Did you
comfortable trying it?
Did you feel connected to me anymore?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, that's rare. Generally speaking, someone turning their back to you instantly, just energetically cuts them off. I mean, look at this. If we're having a conversation, how was your day? What'd you eat for breakfast this morning?
Good.
Tell me about your breakfast this morning. You know what I'm going to do, but just play along.
Just have protein shake.
Keep talking though.
Okay.
Tell me about your morning, your whole morning.
Coffee. Oh my God, it was so sweet. I feel so connected to you right now.
Katie's just like, I don't know, it's something about the back of people's heads. It's
They feel more comfortable to try something, or?
well, it's possible, but I still don't, in this studio, don't ever want you doing it.
Oh.
And let me tell you a couple of reasons why. So I was trying to make a point, don't do this.
Oh, my assumption was that's what you were saying you were gonna do in the beginner's class, so you were gonna turn away from them.
No,
Sorry.
so
I misunderstood.
it's okay, but you still make a good point. and I want to get to that because I think it's a really interesting thought, is what makes them comfortable trying something. And it might be eyes off of them, and that's where we don't want to hover over them. Who was it saying? Is it you again, Kelly? About, or someone was telling their husband or someone like, I'm not going to give you all the adjustments all the time, but you're my only student right now. Yeah. Like that you're really onto something with that, actually, Katie, because if we hover over someone, yuck. I mean, they just feel like judged and like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Right. So there is this balance of kind of watching them and making sure they're safe, giving adjustments. We'll talk about adjustments, but also not being up in their business all the time. Let them have a little space. However, when it comes to demoing, I want you to mirror. And so what I mean by that term is you're not going to turn your back and demo. So for instance, if Hannah, will you just in the middle do a warrior two, either leg forward. Now, if I am Hannah's teacher and I am going, now come into a warrior two, left leg forward. This is not mirroring, I'm doing the same. But I can't see what she's doing. So, right, and that's fine, but if her knees way out of her toes or something wild, I'm really not gonna, I'm gonna miss stuff. Also, Hannah, how does, I mean, it's again back to this idea, how does this feel me talking to you like this?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was like left foot, and made me be like, it's on my left foot.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if she's facing it, but oh yeah, it is my left foot. I can see.
When we mirror people, it's actually most people to get the proprioception, to get things to happen in their body, it's easier for them to mirror also. Plus, you just feel more, it just feels more friendly. I mean, if it were just us, I'm not gonna do it. Right. But it just is a more friendly, connected thing than turning our backs on people. Plus, it just, their brains, by and large, most human brains are going to understand mirroring better. Now, here's where it gets tricky. When you come into a seated twist, please, no, I know, I'm like, what is the seated twist? I don't even know. Okay, so actually, if we do it with the knee up, please. Thank you. All right, this is where mirroring gets tricky. You agree? Because suddenly I'm telling her to take her right leg up, right, and over the left leg. But what am I doing? I'm doing my left leg up and over the right leg. And then, so you have to get used to calling, and I'm sorry that I have my back to you. Someone telling you not to do it, and I'm like, but what you need to get used to doing is, as a yoga teacher, your right side of your body is now your left side. If you don't get used to calling your right hand your left hand, it's going to get confusing. So you say, inhale, lift the left arm up high. And what's happening? We're getting a mirror, right? And now twist to your right. I'm actually twisting to my left. It hurts my brain a little to do that. But if you gotta unlearn what you learned when you were 3 years old. That's the other way to do it. Just a little trick. If you're ever, try not to demo in the mirrors, but if you're just having, you know how some days your brain works better than other days? Do you ever have those things where it's just, that is not gonna happen? And you know it. So then you stand in the mirror and you can say, and go ahead, if you don't mind, just stand right there. You stand in the mirror, but I'm watching her. So I say, like, okay, bring your right arm up. And I can be like, okay, that's the right. Or I can just do it myself because I'm watching, right? But if you stand, if you're adjusting, just a trick for your regular yoga class, it's easier if you're standing behind them, you can think through it. But if you're demoing, by and large, it melts your brain a little. You'll get used to it though. Thank you, Hannah. So
yes,
I've been in a yoga class, the teacher has been doing the opposite of what they say they're doing.
Yes.
I've just never noticed that before.
Oh, then they're doing such a good job, but it is a whole thing. Yeah, and it's not as hard with certain things like warrior two. Okay, you're going to call your left leg your right leg, but it is with the twists, I think, where it gets, because there's so much left, right, this, that, and crossing the midline, and it's just like, oh. So the main trick is always call your left, your right, and your right, your left.
It does work. I will. Now I'm like practicing, and I do struggle now practicing more because my left is my right, and then I realize like, oh, I'm facing the wrong way. Everybody else.
Yeah, once the teacher says left and you're like, right.
I remember when I was in the teacher training being like, I will never figure out these rights and lefts. You will.
It does
come.
happen. And then some days you're like, I've been doing that for 10 years and suddenly today it's gone. And that's okay too. So yeah, and sometimes, let me see what else I want to say about demoing. You might want to take them down to the mat to demo. And this is another reason a beginner's class will take longer. I often do this for the well, you do it anyway for the half series. I'm not going to teach that half series. I always teach it on the knees. I don't care how strong people are in my class. If I'm not teaching it on the knees, everyone's trying to be like Carly in the front row who can do it on the toes, plank on the toes to chaturanga, or so I'm just using you as an example. And then their form gets sloppy and they never learn a proper chaturanga, right? So I just teach it from the knees as if the other doesn't even exist, because I want to start to teach. I want to get that good foundation. But I'm going to demo it first. Certain things I demo, one thing that's tricky for them is pulling I will ask you to move this for me and try to give me as best in frame as you can. Is pulling the leg through. And again, I have to have a short stance because I don't want to slip and hurt my nose on this hard ground. But so my down dog is not really a proper down dog right now, but forgive me. If I'm saying, lift the right leg and then pull it through to a lunge, where do you think most beginners' foot ends? Feet, but you know what I mean, right? This is a big challenge. What's not happening is they're not shifting their shoulders, and then they have a lot more room to pull it forward. It still may be back here, and then we make a joke about, talk to that foot, talk it, tell it to scooch, scooch, scooch. But I will show them, do this and this, and we'll go through 3 times on each side. Well, now I don't have time for core, but that was my core. And I got some muscle memory by repeating it 3 times on each side. Yeah? Is that kind of making sense? Thank you for that.
That's exactly what my husband did. Was like, you showed Ben had to tell him.
We don't know that. I just,
Now it's like,
when you teach them enough, one day things will dawn on you. And that happened to me is one day I just was like, oh, they're not shifting their shoulders forward. It's really almost like you're coming back into plank.
yeah.
Really is what's happening. So if that's been something for you also, yeah, shift those shoulders, Carly. Yeah.
I think I always struggle with that. I'm always like,
Well, and that's, I like to show that because there's usually a few people in class who are like, wait, that's me. Because it is one of those things where it's like, oh. Oh.
For 20 years, I can't even get into a lunch.
We all, but any way you get there is fine. But we all have those things where it just takes one day. It's like, oh, it's that thing. It's that little thing. So if you have certain things that are going to be a little trickier, like pulling the leg through, things like that, I do like to take a minute, and they don't mind coming down to the mat for a minute and having a sip of water. Yeah, I mean, right? Because
they welcome breaks.
Even when they're quite athletic or more, just physically prone to doing things like this, there's just there's the learning and things like that. And in learning, it's good to have little breaks. Okay. One other thing about demoing, and then I'm going to get into theming on Beck's point, and then I need to get moving. This is what I talked to you about. My time on this one, I always am. All right. One quick thing to think about. If, say, it's the first round of Warrior 2, I'm going to think about that. This is classroom management. I have to think about, okay, they're going to be coming up and facing that way first. I need to get over there before they come up. And then second side, run over and get over there by the time they come up. I'm usually not adjusting the first round because I want them to watch me do it. I'm going to adjust the second round. And actually, I lied back. Let me get into adjusting real quick. Theming and Ujjayi will be last. So with adjusting, we're not going to do the most deep, intense adjustments, but we still, of course, with consent and lots of ongoing consent, like reminders of, remember, I don't know what it's like to be in your body. So if it doesn't feel right, shake me off, please. That's the ultimate yoga, that kind of stuff. But we want to get them used to the idea of adjusting because it can be so helpful. And it can help you start to feel like that. Oh, that's what's happening in this pose, right? Like, oh, that's what this is. It can be such a wonderful tool to help our students be safe. A really good one where you can just go down the front row and get everyone, and then everyone sees, oh, she's getting everyone, not just me, not just picking on me, is halfway lift. Have them hold a halfway lift, that first or second round of it, and just go down the row and like just pull the shoulders back all the way down. Hardly anyone will move. They'll still be like frozen like this. And you'll be pulling here and they're like, not like that, like I just did, but you know, you're trying to open the chest and they're just like, no, this is how I look at my phone all day. We all do it. We're like, I'm around it. But if you just go boop, 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 boop down the line, then they say, oh, this is just a normal thing. So you really, in a beginner's class, unless they opt out, want to get your hands on everyone, do gentle, sweet little assists, sometimes go deeper as they start coming to your class more, and make a point. Here's my thing. If you're going to come to my class for 3 years, I am darn sure going to be adjusting you and making sure everyone sees me doing it. Because the lesson is what? If they see me adjusting the best person in class, what does that mean about adjustments? Yeah, they're not criticisms. It's not meant to be a criticism. It's just meant to help you feel better in a pose or to be safer in a pose. So you do adjust. Am I going to probably do the happy baby adjustment? I don't think so. Probably not. But I don't know. There's lots of right ways to do things. Yeah. Is your hand up or just resting? Okay. I couldn't tell. Okay. Ujjayi breath will come last. Theming, I think, is important to do because this is one of those things that starts to open that doorway for people going, oh, even if they don't hear. And this is the thing with beginners that'll be funny is you might repeat a theme throughout the whole class and they don't hear it once. But their third class, they might hear it by the end of class. So I think it's important because it just starts to open that door of like, oh, maybe there's something else to this yoga stuff and just that curiosity and that intentionality can start to become a thing for them. And I think repeating it and keeping it simple is the way to go.
Having the same theme.
Yeah, you can have the same thing. I used to do literally as a theme, embracing your inner dork. And I would do it a lot. Because it just was kind of light and fun, but it also is there's a lot in it that is yogic, right? Just being like, I'm stepping into being uncomfortable. I'm feeling awkward, but I'm breathing through it, that kind of stuff. And just keeping it simple. We're not going to go into, well, Patanjali says in Yoga Sutra 1.2, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, and they're like, what just happened? So do theme. Please don't avoid themes. The other thing is I do teach Ujjayi breath, and I generally, people are practicing regularly for a good year before they ever really start to get Ujjayi breath, sometimes longer, sometimes 3 years. If you're like, that's me, I still don't have it, that's okay. Keep working on it though, because it will be the thing to transform your practice like nothing else. But that Ujjayi breath, still teach it and still teach with it. So at this point, I want you when you're practice teaching, have they talked to you about bringing in your own Ujjayi breath? Yeah, so it's inhale, halfway lift, exhale, high to low plank. Yeah. And so on, right? You're bringing that breath in. What it's doing is keeping you steady. It changes the energy in the room. Just kind of, if you feel how right now, the energy just feels a little thin. I don't know if you can feel that, but join me if you're an Ujjayi breath person or you want to try. Let's do a couple together. And just notice how it changes the ambiance, okay? So let go of the breath you have, maybe shake it out a little. All right, and as you're ready, inhale, slight constriction at the back of the throat. And really listen. Even if your breath is the only one. Okay, you can let that go. Thank you. It feels good to breathe though, right? Any chance we get. Ujjayi breath is great off the mat too when you're stressed, by the way. But Ujjayi breath, it just kind of changes the energy in a room. It sets a pace. It's a nurturing and grounding kind of sound, right? It's oceanic. So even if you've got your music in the background and this and that, if you're adjusting someone and they hear you breathe or they can hear you across the room, it's nice for them. And also every now and then and you can tell them, I'll tell them, I'm doing this loud, weird breath. I know you're not used to it. I hope you get it today. But if you don't, when you hear me do it, maybe be reminded, oh, I might try that for one breath, that kind of thing. And they may not, but them hearing you do it, it teaches them, yes, when I say make sound, I really mean it. I used to not think that. I used to think, because the teachers used to not do the Ujjayi breath, and I used to, and I couldn't hear other students doing it. And I really thought, oh, you don't really mean make sound, or you mean make the most, like, and we're not trying to like be like, right? Some people think it becomes a competition and they're like, oh, I'm gonna win Ujjayi breath today. But it's a sound we make, and people don't always feel comfortable making sounds breathing. So start to bring it in, and especially, well, any class, but also for your beginners. Okay. Comments, questions, anything else on what we've talked about so far, and then we'll start to get into our sequence. Yeah.
I remember when I started taking beginner stuff, they would say, you want to feel sensation and no pain. Is that good to say?
I think that's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. In general, that's a good rule. There are people who are just going to have a little pain no matter what if they have arthritis and things like this. And in that case, a little pain, the question becomes, what can I do today that I don't regret tomorrow, but that keeps me mobile? Because some people shy away from any pain and lose all mobility and get worse. And that's more of that's when we're getting maybe more into chair yoga and things, but you still do see people and beginners who are maybe older or have things going on. So it's a yes, and it's a good general rule. Anything else?
I have a question, but I don't know if it's like about beginners or general. How do you keep track of time? Like if I don't wear a watch, like I don't see I see that one here.
Yeah, I never wore one until recently. So when I taught, I never wore one, and I would just, for one, it's a good, because we don't want to be like little sharks, like just circling, but it gives us a reason to walk back over here and talk to the room from here, talk to the room from there. So either wear a watch or
Clock the clock.
clock the clock. Yeah. A what? Playlist can help.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say they'll help a lot, but
Beginners, your timing, you can't count on things like that necessarily, because beginners, you will be like, this is the perfect beginners class. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, I have 15 minutes left and I've gotten through 1/3 of what I planned. Like beginners, it's such a whole different thing. But in your regular standard class, like you're doing, first off, if you start breathing the Ujjayi breath when you teach it, you get a really good internal sense of timing. I really think I could probably teach an hour-long class and be within a couple of minutes because of that. And doing it a lot. I mean, it's repetition, but do you have that sense too?
agree. I needed to watch really aggressively when I first teach it, and it's my safety blanket. but I catch myself like I can tell where we are. I feel like it's this, and I'm always like, yep, yep, yep. It's very rare, and it is the beginners classes that I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
because you might get a great question when you actually ask a question and they want to engage, and that does get really important. So you're not going to break that up. But now that took 15 minutes and you're behind.
Yeah. Yeah. So beginners, you just have to keep watching, but in your regular class, and you'll get a good sense. And that's where you can use, if you have a music list or two that you are very comfortable with, you'll get a real good sense of the rhythm. Yeah.
So what are your tips on like what to cut out if you're
That's
not
what we're
like-
getting into next. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I'll, yeah, give you your money for that segue later, which is my plants in the audience. Yeah, let's hop into that. So what we'll be doing next, and this is the thing I want to teach you to think through it. I don't want to just tell you, here's the rules, okay? Because like I said, there's a lot of right ways to do it. For instance, should you teach crow to beginners? And just think that through. You don't have to answer. I would say it depends. I used to teach a group of folks from the military. It was their PT once a week, and they would go to the studio at Austin Bluffs at 6 a.m. And the first week, it was a group of all men who were not thrilled about being there. And they weren't having a lot of success naturally with the more like forward folds. It was just not like the stuff, it was kind of frustrating and not, it just, they didn't want to be there anyway. So I'm like, I have to give these guys a success. And I knew that they would have fun with that. It'd get a little silly and it would give them a sense of success. So in that case, we did crow. And that's when I got them. And then each week it was like, they just, I would teach them new things and it was really fun for them. So my point is don't rule anything out, but today we'll be thinking in general. It's not going to be that group of like, 22-year-old, really strong athletic type people coming in, who maybe aren't finding success in other parts of the sequence, right? This is more of a broad general. You might have one or two like that, but you also have a 65-year-old woman who hasn't moved in 20 years. And you have, some people in their 20s, 30s, 40s who, all kinds of just humanity in your classroom. There it is. So don't rule anything out. However, today in small groups, I'll assign you a section of the sequence. And you'll be running it through these filters. You're going to ask yourself these questions. These are things you would consider changing. You're going to look at that section of your sequence and say, okay, would you change the length of time that they're in the pose? There are some poses that we're, as people who've done a pretty good amount of yoga, we're pretty comfortable in, that are torture poses for beginners. An example can be child's pose. Partially because it's just very vulnerable too, right? It just says length of time up here. And then there's some poses you might want to hold for longer because you think, okay, they can do it and it's going to need, don't get too, like if it's within a breath or two of what we're doing anyway, don't worry about that. But just general, if we have something where we're like, this is a longer hold, look at it and go, does that make sense for beginners? Or not? Okay. 2, look at what you're just going to cut. What poses need to be cut? And by the way, lots of them do. Now, in general, we still want a full spectrum class. If you were doing this whole sequence on your own, you might say to yourself, I often cut extended side angle. Okay. I often cut it because I'm taking enough time with my warrior, with my warrior series, and well, what's happening with the body? Am I getting that elsewhere? Well, yeah, the warrior stance I'm getting because I'm teaching warrior 2 and we're going to do a reverse warrior. So they're getting that. What about that nice extension, that side extension? Oh, well, I love to teach triangle to beginners. So for me, that's an easy cut because it just shortens up my side. That for me just was one I did often. Now, so if you cut something, I want your thinking behind it of why it's okay to cut and where we're still going to kind of get this idea later. And honestly, sometimes things just have to get cut anyway. I mean, you're thinking in a perfect world. Now, when you look at your sequence together, it might not fit. For instance, someone might be assigned son B. They might do this. They might cut extended side angle. I'm not saying you have to, by the way. And they might say, well, it's because we're going to keep triangle later. And then if you have triangle and yours and you're like, oh, we cut triangle, that's okay. You can't read each other's minds. But if you were doing the whole sequence, you'd be looking at it that way. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to think about what you're going to cut, and you have to cut a lot. This doesn't just include poses, but rounds. So there's poses. I almost wrote roses. Poses, but also rounds. By that, I mean rounds of the sun salutations and half series within that. There's a lot of half series. We do not need this many for beginners. So think about that. All right, third thing you'll look at is swaps. So sometimes you're like, that's not quite the right pose, but I still want them to get this thing. So for instance, I often don't teach half pigeon to beginners because of time. By that time, it's a complicated one to teach. It gets taught really well in vinyasa classes because there's just tends to be more time, and I think they'll get it safely later. But what I have to think about is, okay, I've done crescent. Two things that are happening, right, is I'm getting this hip flexor of this leg, right? Well, crescent does that pretty well. So I'm like, check, that's good. But this stretch here through this front hip doesn't really happen, right? We've got it coming kind of toward the midline, and we're getting this nice stretch through here. There are places it could be argued it happens a little, but what I might do instead is just a quick little thing like this, or on the back as a figure 4. But I don't, and yet there's not always time for that, but it'll be in my plan. Okay. So think about what you're going to swap. And again, you might be taking something out of the series that you have, but you're like, oh, I'm going to swap it and put this later. Just let us know that. Yeah. Even if that's not the series that you're assigned, it could be happening later. It might make more sense. Last one, what are you going to modify? And this is how you teach it. I always, for instance, not everyone, I don't want everyone thinking through the half series, but I would like the Sun A group to really think about, how are you going to teach half series? And how's the breath going to fit? Think about this too, Sun B people. I think you need to think about the half series because it is a long exhale from reverse warrior to high plank to low plank. That is a long exhale. I never did it that way. I did inhale, reverse warrior, exhale down to plank on the knees. Inhale, firm up your core, get your ear, shoulder, hip. I usually show them ear, shoulder, hip, knee alignment. Get your alignment. So I do an extra breath there. Exhale, lower to the belly. Inhale, cobra, and so on, right? So you have to think through, because it's vinyasa, particularly if you have Sun A, Sun B, you need to think these through. Because I cut out extended side angle, I'd have to think that through. Well, for me, usually I was like, they don't get up to warrior 2 in a half a breath. Really, inhale's just half a breath, right? It's inhale, warrior 2, exhale, extended side angle. No, that doesn't. Instead, I do inhale, start to make your way to warrior two. Exhale as you get into whatever cues I'm giving, right? So we do a full breath cycle there. So we've got the exhale, then I can do inhale, reverse warrior, exhale, high plank on the knees, inhale, firm up your core or whatever, and so on. So you need to think about, is your breath still going to sync up? They're not going to breathe it anyway, the way you say it, but in fact, they're probably going to hold their breath, but eventually they get it. So modification is going to include these changes you make, as well as if there's a pose. Say you're like, well, we do, if you have crow pose in yours and you're like, we do want to keep it, but we're not going to teach it as actually lifting off the ground. We're just going to teach it as, from right here. And I mean, we're doing compression. There's good things happening here, and we're just going to teach it this way or something like that. Quick note back to swapping and cutting, actually cutting core, you have to probably cut a lot if you get core. Modifications can include, if I always teach this with a prop. I'm a little wary of always teaching anything with a prop personally, but if you're like, this time we're going to teach this with a prop. Sometimes props can be, like for instance, if you're doing triangle, they think the point is to reach, not too many people can do a proper triangle and even reach the block on the ground. It can be far more appropriate just to teach them to do, and again, super short stance, but do, like a arm, that's hard with a really short stance, but an arm here kind of thing, or here. Yeah. Because otherwise then we start to get this kind of stuff. Okay. So think about what you're going to modify, swap, cut, and change length of time of. You'll meet with your group. I'm going to assign you 1 to 2 series to do, depending on the length of this series. And one thing I want to say too is think about how you're going to present it, because we'll come back as a group and present, and we won't have a ton of time. So as much as I love hearing every thought in your head in the process of coming to the decisions, we probably won't have time for that. So I'll just ask you to be succinct and be like, go through the section you have and just say the changes you made and how that might impact it later in the sequence or whatever. Yeah? Okay. So let me see how many groups I want to do here. 1, 2. How many of you are there? I knew someone would know. Okay, 13. Oh, there's 11. There you. Well, who?
13 would be that. Yeah.
I thought you still had 12, or was it 12 with Judy? I thought she made it 13. Okay, she made it 12. Okay. It is there. Yeah, it's fair. You're right. You answered correctly to a different question, but that's still a correct answer. Let's count off by 4s, please. So just 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
4. Just say 3. Sorry. 4.
2, 3.
Okay, so my 1s, you're going to have integration and Sun A. I want you to talk about your theme also. For anyone, if you get through this quickly, pick another one and do it anywhere in the sequence. And it might be a nice contrast to how someone else did it. Yeah. All right. For my group 2, you're going to have Sun B and core. Group 3, you have crescent and Utkatasana. And group 4, you have triangle and then spine, hips, and surrender. Did I miss any of the series? Sometimes I do, and people, I've had it before where we haven't realized till we're all going through. Okay. So find a place to work with your group. I want you to just not think too hard. Let's take 15 minutes. You can do it in 15. Go. Just get kind of brutal with the sequence. Be like, cut it. Yeah. So our timing's working out pretty good.
Yeah, I was still have to get it.
Yeah. And if I need to, I can give them a little extra time. But I don't. Here's the thing, people generally take the amount of time you give them. And I want to give them enough, but if you give them too much, then they deliberate about every little thing. And while there's could be value in that,
The yoga,
yeah,
let their
they
brain just, yeah.
they can do it without overthinking every little thing. Yeah. So Hannah and I are in here. Let us know if you need anything, please. Actually, I'm not because I'm gonna go to the bathroom, but I'll be right back.
I didn't. Oh, yeah. Everything I probably favorite. That's like this. Just because you're doing. Yeah, I've noticed my class is the amount I have in chair. Yes, for sure. I guess it's. Do you got it? Use it like a way. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because maybe if I remember, I was present, but if I didn't, I was in the core. Yeah. Different core. Yeah.
And that's where they really happen.
Yeah.
I was just noticing as the checklist, like we were just checking off all the things we were gonna hit, is that in that?
Yeah, it is.
I couldn't tell people. I know you said you got a full engaged and then we're able to stop up and like how much sometimes we have to.
It'll be different with every group, but that's, you do with this one, you have a little leeway. You know, I've had times, I tried not to do it as much this time, but I've had times where, like, let's say, like we can be talking about cues. If they are bringing up my stuff, I might just hop and do it then and do part of my lecture then and then keep going. I tried to keep it today more,